Hello, hello, and welcome to the Rooted Voices podcast. Thank you so much for being here today. Today's amazing guest is Miss Margit Moore, a mother, educator, and feminist activist and mentor. She has lived most of her life in the Seattle area and is Native American and white. Welcome to the show, Margit.
Thank you. Nice to talk to you, Mahi.
Nice to talk to you too. Today, Margit will be discussing her relationship with values. So, Margit, what do you value the most, and when did you have to protect those values during your life?
I was thinking about values in my family recently, mostly because not too many years ago, my mother died. And as a result of her death, which came up on us fairly quickly, I had the opportunity to go through everything that she had stored. And in addition to all of her things she had stored, I had my stepfather's many, many objects and items, and my grandmother's and my grandfather. So I actually had the opportunity to spend about 4 years going through all of the family mementos going back for at least two other generations. So it gave me a chance to understand my family better in a way. I had a roommate at one time, and she would leave here. Cindy would leave here in the evening, and I would be sitting with boxes of materials, and she'd come back maybe 6 hours later and say, "Wait, are you still doing the same stuff?" And I'd say, "I am." And she'd say, "You can just dial 411 and somebody will come and haul all this stuff away." And I said, "No, I really can't do that. I feel like that's not honoring my family. And I'm learning so much from doing this." And so that really brings me to the idea of family values. And when I look at all the materials that I had to work with, that really helped me consolidate and really fine tune my understanding of what values were in my family and what I think I brought forward myself. And I think that I would say that those things are curiosity, both intellectual curiosity, just a general interest in the world, but also personal curiosity and cultural curiosity. I think people in my family have shown that they are, to a certain degree, risk takers. They move out of their comfort zone. Generosity is something that is huge in our family, and also in looking over the items that were saved for decades, the idea of gratitude. So I think that those are the values that are most pervasive in my family, and the ones that I hope I have taken forward and given to my own kids and my grandchildren and other people that I've had contact with. In the process of going through those materials, I looked at things like marriage certificates, high school graduations, pilot licenses, letters, newspaper articles, thank you notes, lots and lots of photos, patents, travel documents, my grandfather's pilot's license and all the different countries that he traveled to, those kinds of things. So lots of materials to be processed, but it basically came down to those kinds of things. So, and I think that for the most part, my family is a family that really lived their values. So I grew up with the idea that it's not enough just to have beliefs or values, that those things should not be kept under glass.
Mhm.
Values are what drive us in our actions and our daily life. And when we look back at the end of our life, we should be able to see a path of our actions being driven by those values throughout. So I think that those are the things that existed there. I also think that the curiosity and the interest in other cultures, people in other cultures, has led to some of the actions that I take. So in terms of political action, a lot of that is driven by the awareness that people from all cultures and with all backgrounds have something valuable to contribute.
Mhm.
And we should better understand other cultures and be open to other ideas. And I think that in our family, you'd see plenty of evidence of that. And I think that starting at a pretty young age, I was driven by that idea of open-mindedness and fairness. One of the earliest examples I can think of happened when I was in middle school. I was actually junior high at that time in Bellevue. And there were a group of us who wanted to have a girls' soccer team. This would have been very early 90s, very early 70s, 1970s, before Title IX. And we were told by the administrators at Tyee Junior High School that there was no money, no field, no equipment, no coach for a girls' sports. There were no girls' sports at that time.
Wow.
So I decided that I was going to try out for the boys' baseball team. So there was a week of tryouts. It was extremely intense. There were people at the practices every day with protest signs and heckling. The newspaper was there capturing and interviewing and taking photographs. I got a lot of heckling and harassing at school through the course of that week and well beyond. I even had people drive by as I was walking home from school throwing bottles at me from cars. And so it was pretty intense. Ultimately, even though I was a good athlete at that time, I was not allowed to be on the boys' baseball team, which was disappointing. But the next year, we were offered a girls' soccer team. And as I said, that was pre-Title IX. So, that idea that why not have a girls' sporting team? If you've got boys' teams, you should have girls' teams. There should be equity that's there. Making change is always difficult, and the people who are going to be leading that change, whether you achieve it or not, takes great courage, and there will be sacrifice that's involved. And ultimately, hopefully, change happens slowly for that. And I think that is something that I got primarily from my mother, who went to the High School of Music and Art in New York City and came to suburban Bellevue in the 1950s with a very different background and an understanding of what the world should be and could be. And she always encouraged me to do what I wanted to do. And never interfered in any way. So, and that whole thing, I know all of that process and some of the outcomes that happened as a result of that, never interfered, assumed that I was capable of handling that. So that idea that you're open-minded, you're fair-minded, you take a risk, and you will be strong enough to survive it altogether. So that is one thing that happened. I think that probably most recently is some of the things that are happening right now in our legislative district, being outspoken and really identifying the qualities and the behaviors that lead to inclusive organizations, as opposed to what are purported to be inclusive organizations, is something that has had consequences even in April. As you may know, there were 3 of us that were removed from membership of the legislative district because we were dissenting basically against some of the behavior and the movement away from diversity and a lack of focus or value for diversity. So it doesn't stop. I've got more work to do, but there's a whole range of things in there from not just starting businesses as a woman-owned business, but also starting the Women of Color in Politics group, where we endorse across Washington state, starting a Native American magnet school in Seattle when the dropout rate for Native students is about 68%. For Native students in Seattle, and most of those kids drop out in middle school. They don't make it to high school. So the work is ongoing. I remember my mother saying to us, both my brother and me, that our job is to make the world a better place, and that if we are not up to that, then we need to get off the planet and make space for somebody else. So that was a pretty direct call to action that came from my family. and especially from my mother. But it was also embodied by my grandmother, who was a strong woman for her generation, and other members of the family too. So those are the things, that intellectual curiosity. What is the world? What is science? What are people like? What are different cultures like? What about languages? I learned things even from your father today, was explaining to me about something from the Southeast Asian culture. And I usually take notes because he's always going to give me some gems of things I need to learn more about. So also, I think our family has been risk takers. When I look at early photos of my mother's mother and her father, he was from a farm in Illinois. And you can tell just by looking at the pictures of him and his two brothers on the farm that my grandfather was never going to stay there. And after he turned 18, he left, went away, and became a airplane mechanic at a time when airplanes were odd enough that people would run from their farmhouses if there was an airplane and stand and watch the plane fly over the farmland. And he became eventually a pilot, and then a professional pilot, and then was in the military as a pilot too. So that willingness to try something new, go someplace new, I think I see that even in my own kids. One is an educator who does programs that are international, and my older son travels internationally and does sustainable agriculture in the poorest countries in Africa. So getting out there, seeing the world, making a difference, those things are really important values. And as I said, not just to talk about, not just to have on a bookshelf, but to actually be the business of the work on a daily basis moving forward. So that's kind of how values are driven and how we have tried to move our values forward in the world.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Marcia. I mean, I think I just learned so much from like a few minute like gap. Like I love how you touched on open-mindedness and how your mother
Mm-hmm,
told you about open-mindedness and
mm-hmm,
how to make direct change in your life and other people's lives. So
mm-hmm,
I think that's something which I'm so glad that you touched on. Can you briefly, I feel like you touched on this already, but can you briefly maybe talk a little bit more about how, these core values you've described, like open-mindedness and just looking for like, or be the change that you want to see in the world, all these kind of values. Could you tell me like how those values like are impacting the decisions that you make today, just briefly?
mm-hmm. When I went started college, I had been the chair of the local ACLU on the east side. I started doing that job when I was 16, and I was the chair of the regional uh, caucus group department, whatever, in this area. And I was apparently the youngest chair of a regional ACLU chapter on this half of the United States. So I was fascinated by constitutional law. And so when I started school, I was planning to go into constitutional law, which actually changed a little bit. And ultimately, I ended up working in what was called Society and Justice, which was a mixture of social work and criminology. And then I usually say, after my own little delinquents were born, I switched to education and started working and teaching. So one, I think that the idea that education can change people and can change people's lives and opens up opportunities for them is not unique to my family. I just think that it's a huge piece of what we do. And as an educator, not only have I worked in local school districts and tried to work across the board in terms of starting the high school gifted program in Bellevue School District as an initiative, working with the superintendent, but also teaching remedial reading, doing after school training for kids who are first in their generation to go to college, helping with those things. I've also helped with curriculum and schools, one at Licton Springs, which is the Native American magnet school in Seattle. But I have also helped with education in Mongolia, in Senegal, and in East Timor. And so these are things that just have open doors for other people. And it is very practical and driven. Right now, we're in the process of hopefully buying a house in Dili, East Timor, for the students. We're into our second generation of scholarships. So when my son was in the Peace Corps there, starting in 2004, we started doing scholarships for kids to go to school. And so we're looking to buy a house that can be a dormitory for kids who are now, some of them are going on to graduate school, which is almost completely unheard of. We're talking about a village where very few children lived long enough to go to school. And school, which was $1 a month, was beyond what almost any families could pay for, and certainly parents of girls could pay
Hmm.
for. So that idea that you make change and you find ways of doing that in the world that are practical. And if you have the benefit of or luxury of time and some money, then you share that.
That's like amazing, like honestly amazing. And I really hope that, you're able to and your sons are able to, continue this work. And
Mhm.
I'm just so like I guess proud and like I feel like so happy that these children and that you were able to like give these kids like a future beyond their village because I feel like that's so important too.
Well,
So,
and it's not so much that there is one choice that's better than another,
mhm,
because some of the kids have done some education, maybe up to or sometime into high school, which requires them traveling to a different, to a town where there
mhm.
is a high school. And yet still maybe they choose to go back and do the substance farming that their family has done. And that's fine. The
Yeah,
idea is that you've got choices, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you're
it's not
totally right
about
about that.
one is better than the other or serves your family or the community better than the other. It's just, do you have choices?
Yeah. And in most of those situations, they don't have the choice. And
No.
the fact that you were able to give them that choice is so powerful. And I'm so
Yeah.
glad that you were able to
Well,
do that.
and you can be willing to do all of that work, and do the lifting on one side, but you've got to have people who want to do the work too.
Mm.
And so, yeah, it's very important. We had this is a little side trip perhaps, for my daughter-in-law. She had a baby shower, and there were some people that were here in the Bellevue area from East Timor on the Hillary Clinton scholarships. So like some of
Mm.
the military, you come and you get educated on the condition that you go back to East Timor, which was, like the lowest, maybe 20 poorest countries in the world at that time. And you promised to do something. And my son and daughter-in-law were fixing dinner for them. And my son said, you know what? We have the brain trust here at the dinner table for East Timor. You're going into medicine. You're going into civil engineering. You're going into journalism. And he said, you've got the next generation of leaders for the country right here at this dinner table. And you guys are going back and you're going to do amazing work. And so just providing dinner, something practical, it can make a big difference just in the little steps that people can make. And so it's that idea of living the values. So not just talking about them, it's the actions that matter.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. And I can't imagine how, I guess, powerful that moment could have been that when you saw everybody, those next generation leaders at your dinner table, like that must have been
Mhm.
like a really surreal moment. Yeah.
Yes, it was very powerful.
Awesome.
Mhm.
So tying back into these core values like education you've mentioned, can you tell me
Mhm.
like, what values you believe are important for the future generation to learn about?
I have to say, although sometimes adults, especially older adults in our community, find that there are shortcomings in young people, I have to say, as an educator and a former middle school and high school teacher, I am really impressed with the younger generation. And I honestly, I don't know whether it's just the people that I'm meeting or the people that I'm teaching, but I am very proud and heartened by what the young people bring to it. And so I think that what I see in young people are that young people are more accepting. They are more interested in people from different backgrounds. They value
Mhm.
that. They seem to have much more practice in incorporating alternate views and understanding that there are very few things that are right or wrong. And so I have to say that I'm heartened by what I'm seeing with young people, and I feel very confident that the young people that I know, if these are the leaders of our future, I say people my age, it's time to step back and be the doulas, be the midwives to make this happen. So clear a space, a step back, ask how I can help, and do that work because they're ready. The
Mhm.
young people are ready to do this work, and I'm excited about that.
I'm excited too, and I'm so glad that you emphasized your belief in young people because I definitely think there's a movement of people who don't have the same belief. So I'm so glad you did.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. And actually, when you look historically, it's young people that have made the most important changes in this country all the way through from the very beginning of this country. These were young people, and yes, privileged and male and white for the most part,
Yeah.
but they had alternate views and they moved us forward. And
Mhm.
now that can be taken forward appropriately. Here we are talking on the 4th of July by next
Yeah.
generations. I think you folks are ready.
And I hope that the audience also thinks that they're ready because Marcia definitely believes in you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Marcia, and taking time out of your day to talk to me. I hope I thoroughly enjoyed learning so much more about you and your stories, and I'm sure that the audience did too. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Good luck to you on your process here. I know you've got a busy summer ahead, and I look forward to listening to your podcast and learning more from the other people that you interview. It should be fabulous.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.